Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Attack on Titan anime review. This one's going to be for Season 4, Episode 10, A Sound Argument. Very interesting episode this week. Lots of information, almost I would say like confusing presentation in that like there's quite a few flashback sequences that like have time skips between it. Then in the present day, we're referring to scenes that we actually haven't seen happen yet. So I picture quite a few people being a bit confused with this episode. And like I had to watch this twice before doing the review here, just so I had my head around what's going on here. And I think that there's a few key points here in that, say, like, one thing that I was a bit confused on initially was just like, okay, Hanji is talking to Eren at the start, and he mentions, like, I can't believe you would actually go as far as to sacrifice Astoria. Don't you care about her? They then proceed to show you flashbacks of him caring about her and, you know, speaking out at the kind of political meeting to sort of defend her and not wanting them to have to, you know, sacrifice her to become a Titan or just like breed children for the rest of her life. Yet the Hanji scene would have you believe that apparently Eren has since changed his mind and is now on board with Historia doing that, but nothing about what was presented to us like showed us where that came from. Similarly, the scene of all of like Eren's friends talking in the present day about him and how much he has changed. They refer to a meeting he had with Zeke that changed him, that they took from that he agrees with Zeke more than he sides with them now, and so they might need to do something about Eren. Again, I don't believe we saw that scene of Eren and Zeke talking, because I don't think we've seen them interact yet, sort of in those like important scenes. So the lack of those scenes made this episode seem, I think, a little bit more confusing than maybe it actually is. But still, you know, it's definitely more of a setup episode, just revealing quite a bit of information. The scenes are sort of scattered to a degree. Like, you wouldn't necessarily say there's a particular like through line throughout this episode. It's just like this, then this, then this, then this, and there's a lot of like reveals. Boom, boom, boom. So one of the opening things that I suppose happens in the episode is that Kiyomi from Hizuru comes. The Akamabito clan. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. But anyway, that clan comes over. They are revealed to actually be friendly with Parody because Zeke obviously has some sort of relationship with them and he has switched sides. Again, that still remains something that needs to be explained. Like, there's a massive amount of like, wait, Zeke was like the Marleyan loyalist and now he's on Parody's side? Like, explain that, please. And now they're setting up that Zeke is going to maybe betray everyone again. Not really sure. But anyway, back to Kiyomi. We get this reveal that straight away that they introduce Mikasa to her. So this is the thing we've sort of been waiting for. Here's the sort of head of the Asian clan. This is the Asian nation within the Attack on Titan world. So this is technically where Mikasa, her ancestry, comes from. Here's the reveal with that. She reveals to us that she has a tattoo on her arm that we never knew about before. But I believe, going back to Season 1, this symbol was there. It's just it was shown in like a different way, and it wasn't that Mikasa had a tattoo. So I'm guessing this is just a thing where like they adapted it differently in Season 1, but they've adapted it accurately here. And, you know, it just creates a little bit of an anime sort of continuity thing, but, you know, you get the point here, is that this is a sign of a descendant of, you know, this clan on Parody, and the explanation we get is that actually Mikasa is actually from a very important line. She is from the ruling line of Hizuru. Because the shogun in the past was close with King Fritz, and after the Titan War, one of the shogun or his child or something like that was left behind on the island, and that's how there are, like, I suppose, other Asian people on the island, and that's ultimately where Mikasa is descended from. Now, Jean also made a kind of interesting note later on about when it came to Mikasa saying, like, I'll inherit the Attack Titan after Eren. And Jean being like, no, 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 no. You can't. One, for political reasons, because we can't sacrifice you because we have to keep our relationship with Hizuru. But secondly, we don't even know if necessarily you can become a Titan, because the whole Ackerman thing, we don't actually know the details on that. So this is sort of a confusing thing in that, like, the Ackermans, like, obviously there's something special about them because they're all, like, really notable, like, skilled characters, you know, Kenny, Levi, Mikasa. My guess is that it probably means Mikasa actually isn't Eldian. She doesn't have any Eldian blood, so she can't actually become a Titan. So that was never actually going to work in the first place. Because I don't think it's ever been confirmed that the Ackermans are Eldian. So I'm guessing that's effectively what that reveal amounts to. But either way, I think that's actually quite good. Like, and that I suppose retroactively reveals to us that Mikasa's father is an Ackerman. I guess. I don't know. I suppose it's one of those things, like, how important necessarily is that going to be as we go forward? That's what I'm not too sure about. But still, it's something that opens up the door to, here is a friendship between Parody and Hizuru, just over the fact that they have this. Now, as the episode progresses, we find out that her main interest in Parody is mainly because of information from Zeke about basically the natural resources on Parody, specifically the ice burst stone, is it that they said? Now, this is my first time hearing about this. Maybe I didn't read one of the sort of fact file things they have on the ad breaks, but I never actually knew that the fuel for the ODM gear was actually this sort of, you know, this ice burst stone. I suppose it makes sense in reflection of that, you know, them having relatively low technology, that I always just assumed that they just knew how to, like, compress gas, and it was as simple as that. But this actually, I suppose, makes a little bit more sense, is that they get, I guess they have this rock that vaporizes so quickly it creates compressed gas. And impressive enough to propel people around in ODM gear. So it has to be this, like, really special, borderline, like, magical substance, which is why it's deemed to be so rare, and why, you know, Kiyomi actually really wants it. The obviously kind of creepy moment of, like, her right in the middle of the meeting, just so greedy for this natural resource that she, like, licks her lips, and it just suddenly comes out that, like, oh, they don't really care that much that they found Mikasa again after all these years. That's just like a premise to, you know, creating a friendship so that they can actually have some sort of trade deals. So, you know, Mikasa realizing that, like, oh, I don't really matter that much to them. So in the same way they reveal this important thing about Mikasa, it's the same episode that they sort of say, like, don't look into this, like, too heavily. It answers a few questions, and that's really all it's sort of meant to be. But yeah, it's at this meeting where we get the sort of key thing in this episode that seems to kind of create the rift between a lot of the characters. Zeke's special plan about, I suppose, switching sides and how to give Parody strength. This 3-step plan, which is step 1 is to test the rumbling, like, use part of it to show that Parody can actually use it and threaten the world into not attacking them again. The second stage is just advance the military of Parody so that the rumbling isn't the only thing holding people back, so that they're actually able to fight on equal terms and win. Makes sense. And then the second one is to make sure that the founding Titan is passed down, as well as that someone with royal blood, obviously that they continue the royal line, but that they continue the royal line and that royal line has the power of one of the Titans. This is sort of a new thing to me, because they'd never, I suppose, quite been clear about it. And that, like, okay, end of last season we found out that, okay, Eren can use the founding Titan power if he touches, I suppose, someone who is of royal blood. That's what happened with the Dinah Fritz Titan. I wasn't entirely sure if it had to be that the royal family member was also a Titan. This sort of confirms that, because otherwise, like, Eren could just, like, touch Historia, who's not a Titan right now, and use it. So they create this extra thing where, no, it only works if the royal family member is also a Titan, which I suppose ultimately makes sense in the grand scheme of things. So the big issue that's explored in this episode is Historia is the only one with royal blood. So to continue the line, she has to have children. To make the rumbling able to be active right now, she would have to become a Titan. And the only one they can really, only available Titan is the Beast Titan. Theoretically, I suppose the Colossal Titan is also potentially up for grabs, but I'm guessing they actually realize how valuable Armin is, and that they should use him for as long as he lives, and not just kind of give that away. And especially when Zeke only has like a less than a year left to live, or whatever it was, it makes sense that is the option you have on the table. The Beast Titan will be the one kind of handed down. That's the one that they'll use in combination with the Founding Titan to activate the rumbling. And so Historia is willing to do this for her nation, and Eren doesn't agree with this. And this is the big kind of contrast scene here. As we get this scene, we'd already basically been told by Hanji that apparently Eren has gone against the way he feels in this scene. And he makes the argument that, like, we've lived as cattle behind walls for so long. Now you want us to, like, literally, like, breed like animals just to keep a line alive. He just inherently doesn't agree with that, because he's all about freedom, of course. So then they cut to, wait, present day, Historia is pregnant already, and quite far along it seems, and the people watching it, some of the higher-ups, just basically covered the idea that the story that, as far as they're concerned, is that Historia approached a farmer who used to live around where she used to live, who sort of bullied her a little bit when she was younger to try and get her attention. She was aware of that and started a relationship with him and is now pregnant. Now, within this scene, they give a reason for this, in that they basically say, because she's pregnant, they're not going to make her the Titan, because that would obviously kill the baby. They don't really know how a pregnant Titan shifter would work. They're already worried enough, like, that, the pregnancy puts her at risk. Because again, if she dies, giving birth, and the baby dies too, there's the royal line gone. So they have to be very protective of what they do with Historia to keep this going. So this story is kind of like, okay, is that the truth? And it's literally just, here's how Historia doesn't immediately have to become the Beast Titan. But then, what is going on? In that, like, the timeline on this is going to get very close in terms of, like, when Historia is going to give birth, and, like, when Zeke is sort of due to die. And, like, are they, like, there's a bit of confusion there about, like, what exactly direction are they going in at this point? Like, was this deal made did this happen just to protect Historia, or is more being sort of hidden here? Because you sort of question, like, is this actually what happened? Like, is Historia actually, pregnant with this random guy's child? Or is that just a story to mask that it's actually someone else's child? Now, I think the most obvious thing is perhaps, like, it might be Eren's. Just because, look, shipping, I get, isn't really that much of a thing within the show, in the grand scheme of things. They've, we know Mikasa really likes Eren, and I think last season, they at least got across that Eren and Historia have a connection of sorts. And to me, I suppose the child just being a royal family member, it feels very like it's a child just for the sake of the plot. Whereas like a child, if it's like Aaron's child as well, there's kind of a bit more meaning behind that as well. Again, it's hard to really see what the full dynamic is, in that Aaron seems to overall be going down this path where he's becoming the villain to basically turn everyone against him. And it kind of, end game wise, it sort of maybe feels like he's willing to sacrifice himself in that way to maybe bring peace through uniting everyone against him. And is he just trying to potentially create a free world in the aftermath of his death where, you know, the first newly born free person is his own child? That would actually be very on theme for the show in a way. But there's a lot of complexities going on here. Am I reading too much into it, that there actually is a bit of a conspiracy around who is the father of Historia's child? I don't know. I just feel it was very almost like convenient that they're talking about it in this episode. They reveal she's pregnant, and everyone just knows the full story of like how this actually happened. It just seemed very convenient, and there's no way it's as simple as that. So it feels like there's a bit more to come out of this. Again, because they're showing us certain scenes from the past, but then skipping over others, and that I'm guessing there's some sort of Aaron Historia scene that probably has happened that we didn't get to see. There's an Aaron Zeke scene, and so on. But anyway, there's a really fun scene with the group, which, again, they're doing these really interesting contrast things between just like a year or two ago, Aaron being on great terms with the rest of the group, whereas in the present day, they're doubting him so much to the point where Armin and Connie are basically saying, we need to be thinking about who's going to take over from him because we maybe can't trust Aaron anymore. We need to be ready to take him out if needed. How much he seems to have lost the faith of his friends in comparison to the scene on the train tracks, basically. Which is just this really fun dynamic of like they all discuss, you know, I'll take over the Attack Titan. No, I will. And like Connie and Sasha have a great back and forth about, you know, both being like, no, you don't understand. I can't be the idiot because you're an even bigger idiot than me. And that was very fun. But the blush between them all as just Aaron admits that, like, no, I couldn't have any of you inherit it because I care about you too much. That seems to be a very inherent thing to Aaron, of like, he's willing to accept, you know, the curse of Ymir on himself, but he would never give it to someone else. Yet, again, Hanji is specifically sort of saying that Aaron has apparently now changed, and like he now agrees with the plan and what's going on with Historia. I'm guessing we're just going to get some sort of a scene eventually when whatever we're doing with Zeke comes out, and Aaron is going to be like, yeah, I'm on Zeke's side. Because again, we also have to acknowledge that like Yelena and stuff like that, the Marleyans, have apparently just been, you know, like kept aside from everyone else. That what seemed like they're now allies isn't necessarily the case anymore, and you know the leadership of Parody is being like very like cautious in this, and a lot of the leaders are making sort of very questionable decisions in terms of like the philosophies of characters, of like Aaron is doing what he needs to do and he feels that he needs to fight to achieve what he wants. Armin and a lot of the other scouts feel that the way to go is that if we can show people that we want peace and that we're just normal people, peace will be achieved. Very optimistic, very idealistic, but not very realistic. So you can maybe see why, like, you know, that's perhaps not the way to go. But then you have like the actual leadership of Paradis, who just seem to want to become the next nation and just start politicking and, you know, trying to take advantage of everyone else. Like, and Pixis is just like, yeah, we don't know anything about this, but we'll see where we go. And my guess is just that Aaron can't quite agree with the optimism as being the only way to accomplish this of his friends, and he doesn't agree with the way the leadership are going. He feels that fighting is the only way to do this, and he's going to do it by whatever means necessary. Because, again, one of the key scenes is probably the fact that he does, basically tell Hanji that, yeah, I'm in here in prison because I'm allowing you to imprison me, because I'm still on your side. But if I wanted to, I could escape, and there's nothing you can do to stop me, because you can't kill me because you'll lose the Founding Titan and the Attack Titan, and you have no idea the details about like how it would be like reincarnated in someone else. So that would be a mess. And then just because he has the Warhammer now, he has the ability to just get out of an underground situation, no problem. He's just too powerful at this point. So they are really in this kind of interesting situation. And again, it's a massive contrast to previous scenes of Eren being captured, basically, or imprisoned by other people. He let like Levi beat him up, back in the early days. He was relatively helpless a lot of the other times he was captured by characters. But here he is captured, but actually in full control. And just the threat, the fear he puts in Hanji when he like turns on the sort of Titan activation glow for just a second, and she just kind of leaves the room, tries to play it cool, but like just slumps by the door and realizes like, what have I gotten myself into? I'm the leader of the scouts now, but like, what do I do? Because that's the thing of like the scouts are sort of like the main branch of the military to a degree, but they're not making the leadership decisions. And it's just this kind of conflict of like philosophies basically in all of this. Like, we don't know what we're really meant to believe, because again, like, we don't know the full scope of like Eren's plan and what he wants to do. I think what they're setting up is that Zeke is going to break out, and I'm guessing in that chaos Eren is going to break out as well. I think they've already set up that Flock and a lot of the people that also agreed with Flock back a few episodes ago are very like pro Eldia. They will join Eren and Zeke and will get factions going on. I think what adds complexity to this is that I am expecting a Marleyan counterattack at some point, and I don't know how this is all going to coincide, because you suddenly have Paradis / the Scouts, Eren and the people who will follow Eren and Zeke. You have Marley then, and then you also have sort of like Gabby and Falco still there. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on. They emphasize the wine quite a lot throughout this episode, suggesting that it's poisoned in some way. I don't think it's going to be as simple as just it is a poison that will kill people. I think there's going to be something more to that, and it relates to Zeke in some way. That's why they, at the very end, highlighted that a lot of the soldiers around him are drinking this wine, and then they cut to Zeke, and like he knows what's going on. So there's that. There's also the fact that some of the higher-ups were drinking the same wine, and Niccolo was like, this is the bottle, right? So he's been like apparently directed specifically to give this wine to the higher-ups. So something's going on here that's going to create some sort of chaos, and that's quite interesting in that, like, once this happens and once some sort of a rift happens, I don't really know where we're going to go. But before that, they did set up that Armin and Mikasa are going to talk to Eren. So they're going to have a big, I suppose, the big three having their conversation. And my guess is that this conversation is probably not going to go very well. I'm guessing this will be Eren sort of really distancing himself from his friends, and it'll really be the thing that makes it feel like, okay, Eren is going down a villainous path at this point. What are we meant to think? Whose side are we meant to be on? What has happened to Eren? I'm assuming that's what they're going to do with that, but again, they could surprise us with that. Again, there's so much in this episode, I don't even know if I've covered like all of the scenes. But yeah, a lot of intrigue just in general, in terms of like all of a sudden like Historia and her child, like that's sort of like a major thing of like, wait, what's going on here? There's more to this story, surely. all the factions and the politics sort of coming into play now. The fact that Marley are going to, I suppose, come back into things at some point. They haven't done anything with Falco and Gabby now that they've been captured just yet. And it looks like Gabby and Falco are going to be sort of reintroduced in the next episode. So I'm guessing they'll also have their kind of realization that, like, these are just normal people. What do we do now? And it will just further create the situation of, like, most people on the parody Eldian side of things get that the world features a lot of different people and they understand it. But now it's going to be some of the Marleyan characters realizing that too, and where do we go from here? A lot of complexity, a lot of, the main theme of this season of just like, everyone has their side, but we're all still humans in the end, but how can we get over the problem and the persecution against Eldians, where they're hated by basically the entire world because they can turn into Titans. That's what you need to resolve. And we'll see, I suppose, if we ever get more backstory on that, if they go into more depth about, what is the real cause of Titans? Why can only Eldians turn into Titans? Like, what physically allows that to happen? But we'll see if they go into that much depth. So there have been my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.